Afternoon, everyone. And thank you, Quanta. Thank you for this wonderful opportunity for us to be here. Quanta is a trusted ecosystem partner and a personal friend. So I'll spend maybe 10 minutes talk about, RAN. Radisys is synonymous. Going back to our history, the DNA comes from a company called Trillium. Different passages. The most recent exciting journey that we've just started a month ago is now we are part of Reliance and Jio. Reliance is a huge conglomerate in India. Jio is one of the fastest growing network operators out there today. 280 million subscribers and on path to grow towards 500. Thank you. I was looking for that. Okay, so nothing new. I think since the last 18 months, we've all been brainwashed into 5G, so might as well have yet another go at it. So I'm going to make a prediction that 2019 is the year of 5G. That'll keep happening. But if you break it down, I mean, there are 3 or 4 key elements. One element, obviously, you talk about 5G, but it's all about disaggregation. And what's really interesting is that the operators, and yes, the operators, not the vendors, are driving this 5G rollout. And the way they are driving it is by demanding that this goes cloud native, it is virtualized, there's no vendor lock-in, all of these words that we keep hearing, right? But the essence of this is the evolution of the architecture that's happening now. So these fancy words that we never spoke of, right? RU, DU, CU, they've all sort of become a common word in our new dictionary. How these elements join, what elements are these, what goes into these elements, the story is unfolding. I can bet you that if I took a poll here, everybody would have their own definition of what goes in this distributed unit or what goes into the central unit, and then someone shouts, hey, what about the AU? So that is happening, and virtualization or vRAN, going from your centralized RAN, that's yet another key element that's sort of driving this infrastructure that's being built up. And let's not forget about fiber. So people think about 5G mobility, but the backhaul, the fiber, is equally important. And as you can see, carriers have made tremendous investments. A lot of the dark fiber is now being lit up as well. And that's yet another factor that's going to drive the evolution of 5G. I also have started thinking, especially now being part of a larger family that has an operator at the helm, we've started thinking about use cases. Radisys used to always think about enabling, and we enable our ecosystem. Our ecosystem is ODMs, OEMs, folks like the Maveners of the world, the parallel wirelesses of the world. We're now thinking about use cases, and how do we enable our customers implement these use cases? For us, IoT is a use case. It could be industrial IoT, it could be URLLC, you name it, it's a use case. MEC, I think we're not allowed to say MEC anymore. It's now become intelligent edge, it's become whatever the heck you want to call it. But something that brings the workload closer to the user. And then obviously this new element called RIC. I don't know if you guys are familiar with ORAN. We are members of ORAN. So within ORAN or Open RAN, they have defined this new element called the RAN Intelligent Controller. And without getting too technical about it, think of that as where your SON and a lot of your RRM, mobility management functions reside. So that's yet another element that's sort of driving this evolution. So if we didn't have enough of RU, DU, CU, let's now also throw in RIC into that sort of whole mix. We are also, Radisys has maybe, I think the last count is 114 or 115. I don't know, we were at the CBRS Alliance meeting on Tuesday in San Francisco. We are active members of CBRS. There's an active press release out there. Radisys is actually the one who's working with CBRS Alliance to do the testing for all the CBSD Class A, Class B devices. So we implement all the test cases, and we are actually executing it on behalf of CBRS Alliance. And last but not the least is the TIP, the Telecom Infra Project. A lot of, including Bicel, my friend Bo, who will be speaking after me, we work very closely at TIP, as amongst different other projects. So we heard I think today, I don't know if we heard ecosystem more or 5G more. I don't know which word we heard more today, but so Quanta, Intel, I would say, are two very key strategic partners. Our relationship with Intel goes back many, many years. In fact, Intel even had acquired Trillium at once upon a time. So it runs very deep. But we are also equally strategic partners with Cisco, Xilinx, Bicels, Astri, National Instruments, CommScope, and this list is not endless, but what you will see is that this is an ecosystem that's bringing best-in-class products as we try in our journey to enable 5G infrastructure. So speaking of transformation, right? I mean, one thing I do like to bring out is, yes, we are all sort of mobile heads here, but one key element of the transformation is also what's happening with the wireline, the disaggregation or the CUPS model in wireline. I was actually heartened to see that Gary had a slide that showed BNG and EPC in the core. And we are very active. We work with ONF. We are members of ONF. We do a lot of work with OnDot Labs, contributed a lot to something called Volta to virtualize the OLT software. In fact, we are working with a very big operator in Europe, and we are also lighting up Reliance Jio with their fiber rollout. So we are actually doing a lot of work as they roll out the disaggregated model, what we are calling internally as SD-PON, software-defined PON. On the CU/DU, the vRAN, again, a lot of elements that we provide. We not only do the layer 2, layer 3, we are now integrating with best-in-class layer 1. So we work with folks like Astri there. We want to enable our ecosystem, our customers, folks like Bicels. We work very closely with Bicels. And a lot of this sort of jargon of features, which are so critical, massive MIMO, beamforming, network slicing. So we have a lot of proof of concepts, a lot of ongoing projects that we are working with our ecosystem to enable. So Radisys really is at the forefront, and some of these features apply depending on the use cases. So someone doing an indoor doesn't really care as much about massive MIMO as someone who wants to deploy an outside macro. And this disaggregated system, right, ecosystem about this disaggregation. So one thing that really strikes me, and what I like to call ourselves, is that we are the aggregator of this disaggregation. We all know that while the operators will drive and have really taken the reins in their hands for disaggregating everything, no operator wants to be there trying to put 7 different or 8 or 9 different boxes, manage them. Who's going to be that single neck to choke? That's how operators want it. They want the ability, the flexibility, the cost economics of a disaggregated system, but they also want to be an operator and focus on their number one job, which is customer acquisition. They are not there trying to manage the network. That's the role that vendors, enablers, all of us in this room are playing. And that's where we really look at ourselves as, how do we bring this ecosystem and then also be the horizontal integrator, solution integrator for our customers. So I thought I'll put this chart up because we haven't seen enough technical diagrams, right? And I don't want to go into the details of F1 interface and the O1 interface, but the more I think about disaggregation, to me it is the ecosystem plus system integration. There are companies that focus and specialize in each of these boxes. There are companies that focus as DU guys. There'll be companies that are awesome in the NFVI space. There are companies that are doing RIC. There are companies that enable stuff that goes into this central CU. So that's where Radisys plays, for example, in different boxes enabling through our enabling technologies. But then bringing all of this together, that is interoperated, tested, validated, and most important, it's neutral. So if I drink the Kool-Aid going forward, the idea should be that these are Lego boxes and you can pull and plug in any vendor solution and everything should work. And that's the goal. Let's ensure that we get there, because if that doesn't happen, then you're back to the model where the RAN is still controlled by sort of the big guys. So this is where the ecosystem is getting excited. This is where innovation is happening. Ensuring that these boxes are talking to each other in a standard way is what will drive this forward. Last but not the least is, we heard a lot about the edge, right? And I always say that ultimately the edge is going to be your mobile phone. That's the closest edge, unless somebody can come up with a closer edge. So from there, you can go to near edge, far edge. I've heard terms like furthest edge, near far edge. I don't know, there's so many of these edges. The point in this, all of this is that intelligent edge or computing at the intelligent edge and bringing these workloads, containerized, virtualized, whatever you want to call them, these workloads closer to the user, that's again an enabling play. So yet another, sort of block diagram that breaks it down. But there's a lot of stuff, and this edge is really, really now getting super intelligent. And if you look at the telco transformation, right, we went from having this earlier, 20 years ago, then we said, let's move everything into the core, and now we are coming back into the edge. So this sort of wave will keep riding. But these architectures, as they evolve, so important that they are multi-vendor, they are neutral, and they talk in a standard way. I just put some forums. Radisys is very active in a lot of forums. And I mentioned ORAN, I mentioned about CBRS. We're also active in Akraino. There are, we play a big role with Akraino, and now with Linux Foundation, the Linux Foundation Edge, which is just announced. So we are very active in all of these. Thank you.